What's up guys, I'm Newbie Dave and today we're building a fishing cabin. Let's get started. So how's it going, y'all? Hope you're having a great week. Several episodes ago, I built this little underground AFK fish farm because I wanted to do some AFK fishing. I think it may have even been a weekend update. I don't remember honestly, but I didn't have the time at the time to actually build a nice fishing cabin like I had planned. So I just kind of dug this thing out under my house where it was safe and secure to do some AFK fishing. I have gotten a ton of enchanted books, a lot of fish from this thing. I've got a bunch of other random stuff. It's been a great farm, but my plan from the beginning has always been to build a little fishing cabin to do my AFK fishing, and I still want to do that. And so even though that AFK fish farm under my house has been great, I'm ready to go ahead and build that fishing cabin. Now when it comes to an AFK fishing spot, there's three things that you want to keep in mind: location, security, and style. So location's important because you're going to be, even though you're going to be AFK and not really playing the game while using this fish farm, you're still going to be in the game. The game's going to be running and stuff's going to be simulating and ticking, and you want to take advantage of that. And so building an AFK fish farm that's really far away from your base, where crops aren't going to be growing and you're not going to be getting iron from your iron farm, or your villagers aren't going to be breeding, it defeats some of the purpose of having all this stuff running in the background. So you want it to be in a place that's going to be relatively close to the rest of your base, where everything else can still be running and simulating while you're fishing. Unfortunately, my base has started to get a little bit crowded, and I want this thing to be on the water. I mean, it's a fishing cabin. It needs to be on the water. And so this is really kind of the best spot I can think of, is this little peninsula over here, which is where I'm going to build it. So I do have to move my cacti, which isn't a big deal. I mean, every now and then I'll go get some cactus from them, but it wasn't a cactus farm. It was just out of convenience, so that's not a big deal. And I'm going to have to dig back into the hill a little ways to make room for this. But I do think that this is probably the best spot for my fishing cabin, is on this little hill right here. So then the second thing to consider is security. Because you're going to be sitting here AFK fishing, probably not sitting in front of your keyboard the whole time, you want to make sure that mobs aren't going to sneak up on you. So you want this thing to be nice and secure. So you don't want it to be open to the environment where monsters can just walk up on you. You also don't want it to, you want it to have a secure entrance in and out so that mobs can't get into it. I'm playing on normal difficulty, so I can just use a normal oak door or spruce door or something, and zombies and other mobs can't get in. If you're playing on hard difficulty, you probably want to go with an iron door, because zombies and stuff can actually break down other doors, but they can't break down an iron door. So just something to keep in mind while you're building this thing. And then the third thing to consider is, obviously with any build, is the style, what you want it to look like. And for me, a fishing cabin should look kind of rustic, and it should be small because it's not a home. It's like a little vacation spot, somewhere that you go to do some fishing and then you go home. And yeah, you should be able to look at it and say, that's somewhere that you go fishing. And so for me, rustic and small is kind of like my little starter home over there. And so that's really the palette that I want to use for this build. I'm going to sort of be copying the same palette as my starter home. I'm going to be using a lot of oak planks. I'm going to be using some cobblestone, which I don't have in my chest. I need to go grab some of that. I'm going to mix it up a little bit so it's not just a mini version of my starter home, but I do want to use kind of the same palette. So for this fishing cabin, even though I have an AFK fish farm under my house already, this is where I'm going to be doing my AFK fishing from now on. And I'm actually going to go with a slightly different design. I was looking up some videos the other day, and I ran across a different AFK fish farm design by Silent Whisperer, whose builds I love, by the way. I've used some of his builds already for my iron farm and some other stuff. And this AFK fish farm is a little bit more compact. I think it looks a little bit nicer, and so that's what I'm going to go with. And it's going to require an area that is 3 blocks by 4 blocks. And so I'm going to measure this out to get started. And I'll go like that. So this is going to be the area that will be the inside of the house. It can be bigger than this, but it needs to be at least this big. And I think in order to avoid making this thing too big, I'm just going to go with that size. Because if I were to make it bigger, in order to keep the dimensions an odd number, I'd have to go 5 by like 6 or something. And at that point, it's starting to get a little bit too big. So I will now place down the corners of this thing, which are going to be built out of oak, kind of like my starter home over there. And for the foundation, I will use cobblestone. So again, a lot of this is going to look very similar to my starter home. You know what, I thought about it and I've changed my mind. I am going to go ahead and increase the size because I realized this is a tiny little building, and to make it as tall as I need it to be, I think it's going to look a little bit weird. So I am going to go ahead and expand the dimensions of this a little bit, and I think that'll also give us a little bit more room inside so it doesn't feel so cramped. So I'm not going to move the front up anymore. I'll extend the back a little bit, and so I'll go there with that corner, and there with that corner, and then on this side I guess we'll go right there and right there. So let me make sure I got all these lined up correctly. Yeah, I think that'll be good. And in fact, I am going to move the front of this back one. This is still going to be measuring out like the area inside that will be the actual fish farm. But one of the reasons that I wanted to expand the size of this was so I can move this part of it back and have a row in front here that is just kind of open. All right, so now I'll put down the cobblestone foundation. Yeah, so that gives us a little bit more room inside this thing to play around. All right, above the cobblestone we'll go oak planks for the walls. I'll leave an opening there for the door. And the back wall I'm just going to fill in, but for the side walls here I'm going to do some windows. And yeah, I'll do, let's see, with the original dimensions the window would have been 2 blocks wide, which was perfect. I think with the new dimensions I'll go 3. I'd rather make it a little bit bigger than a little bit smaller. So I'll do windows on the sides like this, and the front's just going to be completely closed off. And I'm going to try to make this just as tall as my starter home over there. And so there's going to be, the windows are going to be 2 rows tall, and then another row of blocks on top of that. We'll see how this looks. If it may end up being too tall, just given how small this building is, and that may look weird, but I'm going to see how it works out. I have prototyped this build, but not with these new dimensions, and so I'm not quite sure how this is going to turn out so far. All right, so from the outside, that's what we have so far. Like I said, I don't want it to look like a smaller clone of the starter house. So I think one thing I'm going to do to help make this thing stand out a little bit is I'm actually going to decorate with some barrels. So I'm going to make a bunch of barrels, and barrels are nice because they are a container, like a chest. You cannot double them up to make a double wide barrel like you can with chests, but they can open in any direction. Like you can place them sideways like that and they open on the side, or you can place them downwards and they open on the top. And what's really nice about that is even if there's something on top of them, you can still open them. And they have a really cool texture on the side, which I think looks really good for a fishing cabin like we're going for here. So what I'm going to play around with is I'm going to remove some of these oak planks on top here and put down some barrels that are facing down. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, I think that looks pretty cool. I'm not going to worry about the sides because the roof is going to be kind of hanging down. Maybe I'll do the sides, because if I'm looking at the roof over here, yeah, I'll probably do the sides as well. So there, I put some barrels along the side. Yeah, I think that's going to look pretty good. I think the roof's actually going to be right above those, and so that part will show. So I'll leave that. All right, the roof is just going to be our standard roof. I'll use stairs to kind of overhang a little bit like this. Except I am going to do something a little bit different. I don't think I've done this on any of my builds yet, but I'm going to outline the roof with cobblestone stairs instead of doing the whole thing out of wood. So yeah, I'll do a row of cobblestone, and then I'll do the wood stairs for the inside of the roof, but the outside, both on the sides and the part that kind of goes up, I'm I'm going to do in cobblestone like this. And I've decided to do the roof out of spruce instead of birch like I did on my house. Again, just to differentiate it a little bit, but also I think the spruce goes a lot better with the barrels. It's the same sort of tone, and so I feel like if I had the barrels right below the roof, it would be too much of a contrast and it wouldn't look very good. And then on the top here, since we've got one row in between the two sides, I'm going to go with slabs, and I'm just going to do the cobblestone slabs all the way across. Now, because of the location of these slabs, since they're on the top of the block below that, they're not actually going to block spawns, and I don't want to put any lighting up here to block spawns. So I think what I'm going to do instead is I'll just make a couple of spruce buttons, and we'll put some buttons up here. You probably won't see them from the bottom, from the ground, and this should be enough to block mobs from spawning up here. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. See, I think the spruce roof goes pretty well with the barrels on the sides of that thing. Now inside on the top, I want to do something similar to what I did over there with the fences, except instead of using fences, this time I think I'm going to go with some iron bars. So I'll just put some iron bars in the space up above the walls and below the roof. Yeah, that looks pretty cool. And I don't think I'm going to worry about filling it in with something behind like I did with the gray concrete over there. I think this is fine. And yeah, you can see through it, but that's okay because I'm okay with this one feeling a little bit more open to the environment than I was with my starter home. Alright, so we are almost done with the outside of this. You may have noticed that there's something missing, and that's a way to get into this. So I've just been using a little piece of scaffolding to get up into the entrance. Obviously that's not a long-term solution. And so because this is supposed to be kind of a fishing cabin, I want it to feel like a fishing cabin, and so I'm going to put a dock out in front of this thing, and I'm going to build that dock out of oak trapdoors. I know that sounds weird to build a dock out of trapdoors, but I really like the effect that it had with the little rope bridge over there, and I think it's going to look good. So what I want to do, I'm going to put these on the top of the bottom blocks right there. So that's just high enough that it sticks up out of the water, but still allows us to place something on top of it if we want to. And I'm not going to be too careful about which direction I place these because some may open one way and some another way. I don't plan on ever opening these, so I don't really care which way they open. And I have not noticed a difference in the texture depending on which direction you face them. So I'm not going to worry too much about orientation. And then I think for funsies, I'm just going to go out a little bit further on this side. That side I'm going to stop right there, and I'm going to go down and put some oak logs down in the water coming up like that. On this side I'm going to go out a little bit farther and have this thing kind of wrap around the side a little bit. And actually I think I'm going to bring it all the way around to right there under the window. I think that's good. Probably going to need a few more of these trapdoors. No, I had just enough trapdoors, so this is good. So let's take a look at it from the other side. Yeah, I think that's a really cool looking dock. So it's just low enough that you can get up out of the water on top of it, but it's kind of still sunken down and looks like a dock, in my opinion. I think that's pretty cool. And so this gives us just enough space to put a stair to help get into this thing. I'll put a spruce door on this. Let me see, do I want it? I think I'm going to put it the other way so it's not such a flat wall. Yeah. And I think that's about it for the outside. I'll come back at the end and do a little bit of decorating out here. But as far as the construction, I think this is it. So now we can turn our attention to the inside here. So like I said at the beginning, this AFK Fish Farm takes up an area that's 3 by 4. And so I'll go ahead and pull up all of this wool, and the area around that is just going to be normal ground. So I'll just put down some oak slabs for now, or some oak planks. Maybe I'll put in a different floor when I'm done. I don't know. So this build's pretty simple. By the way, I love shulker boxes because you can put them up on the side like that. I guess you can put chests on the side of the wall as well, but they open up and shulker boxes open out. I don't know, I just think it's a fun little detail about them. Okay, so the supplies to build this thing, we're going to need a hopper. I don't know why I have 9 in here. I probably just grabbed all the hoppers that I had. We're going to need a couple of chests. We'll need a piece of glass, some redstone dust. Let me see, iron trap door, and yes, a fence. And we'll need a pressure plate, which I don't have, but I can craft one pretty quickly. Okay, yeah, sorry, I was trying to clean out my inventory while getting the supplies I needed at the same time. So this is pretty much everything you need. You need a couple of solid blocks, an iron trap door, piece of glass, some chests, a hopper, oak fence, a pressure plate, and a little bit of redstone. Now, like I said, this is Silent Whisper's design. I modified it a little bit because his design had you put a piston where you stand, and the piston raises you up and lowers you down as you're fishing. And I just found that kind of annoying, and I was able to modify it a little bit to get it to work with an iron trap door instead, so you can just stand in place. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put a piece of glass there, and then we need to surround this on all three sides, leaving the front open, with solid blocks, and then we'll put another solid block on top there. No, I'm sorry, we'll leave that open. Put a solid block next to it, and the iron trap door goes on top there. Sorry, Silent Whisper's original design had an extra block here and a note block on top. I got rid of the note block. The iron trap door is going to take its place, and so it's a little bit smaller. All right, and then we're going to dig out a couple of blocks in front of this thing. We'll put a double chest right here, and I'm sorry, it's vanity's sake. I don't want there to be sand under this. I'll replace that with glass, or with grass. Might even replace it with stone. I don't know. I can worry about that later. Put a double chest there, a hopper going into the double chest. On top of this hopper, we will put our fence, and on top of the fence, a pressure plate, which I somehow managed to put under me. A pressure plate on top of the fence, just like that. And then, I'm sorry, I had the number of blocks on this was incorrect, so it does need to go up a little bit more. So we do need a solid block right there. We'll put a solid block next to it, and an iron trap door on that block. Now, coming out of the pressure plate, we're going to put redstone there, going across, and we actually need one more solid block to go on top of that one, because redstone's kind of weird. The way that it turns and goes into things, I don't know, to me it doesn't really make much sense. If I put a piece of redstone right there, for some reason it doesn't go into the iron trap door. And so when I step on this pressure plate, you can see the redstone signal goes through the dust, but it doesn't go into the trap door. However, if we replace that redstone with just a solid block, then the signal will go into that block, which then transfers to the trap door. And so now when we hit the pressure plate, the trap door does open. I don't get it, but that's why we need the extra block there. Are you kidding me? Yeah, that's not gonna happen. I'm sorry. This is private property. You are trespassing. Let me see if you got anything good before I get you out of my house. Unbelievable, the nerve of that guy. Okay, and then to finish this thing off, put a chest in the middle there and crouch down and waterlog that chest. So the blocks around it and the pressure plate keep the water from flowing out, and that's going to be our fishing spot. Because this is our fishing spot, we want the block right above it to be open to the sky so that we get better yields when fishing. So I'll just take that block out. And that's it. So let me show you how this works. We'll get our fishing pole. You do need to have this block open because with the pressure plate, just the way this works, you have to be looking up at it when you cast. So what we're going to do, we're going to stand on the grass right in front of this thing. We'll look at the block right behind it and cast, and the bobber for some reason is going to sink down and hit the pressure plate, which raises the iron trap door. And so this is where the auto clicker is going to come in. We can sit here and just start clicking, and because we're clicking on the trap door, it doesn't reel in whatever our lure. Once we catch something, the bobber sinks down below the trap door, below the pressure plate. It deactivates the trap door, and so now when we click, we reel in whatever we caught and cast again. And so you can just sit here with your auto clicker, just have it keep clicking over and over, and as long as you haven't caught something, you won't reel it in. As soon as you catch something, you reel it in and cast again, and just over and over and over again. So this is a much more compact AFK Fish Farm than the one that I originally built. I love Silent Whisper's design. The only change that I made was replacing the note block with the iron trap door so that we can get rid of the piston, which raises you up and down. So I'm going to take a few minutes and just decorate the inside and outside of this thing, and then we can wrap this up. Alright guys, you ready for the big reveal? Finished decorating the fishing cabin, and there it is. I really like this thing. I was a little bit nervous going into this build because, like I said, I did kind of prototype this a little bit in a creative world, and I never really got something that I was very satisfied with, but I really like the way that this turned out. So outside I just threw in a few more barrels for decoration because these really, I think, help make this look like a fishing cabin and not just a house by the side of the river. Also threw in a little boat. That is purely for decoration. I am never going to take that boat anywhere. Again, it just really helps make this look like a fishing cabin instead of a house. If you come inside, I don't know why, I felt like there needed to be green carpet in here. Like, I feel like the inside of a fishing cabin needs green carpet. I can't explain it, that's just where my mind went. And just throw in a couple of lanterns and paintings to make it feel kind of homey, because you're going to be spending a lot of time in here while you fish. One of the really nice things about using barrels to line all this is we now have tons and tons of storage in here. So as we start getting a lot of fish and enchanted books and bows and everything, we can just start throwing those into different barrels. We can put an item frame on the barrel to say, hey, this one's for fish or enchanted books or whatever. And so we've got tons of free storage in here without having to add any extra chests or anything. So that's going to be really cool. One of the reasons I wanted to make this a little bit bigger than the required 3x4 is because if I ever need more space, I can now like dig down and put in like a basement or an underground room that has maybe a bed and some extra chests, or maybe an auto sorting system, because right now everything's just going to go into this chest and we'll have to manually sort things out into different barrels ourselves. But for now, I think that this is a fantastic build and I'm really happy with how it turned out. And that's going to wrap it up for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I am really happy with how this build turned out. I think the structure of this thing is similar enough to our starter home to kind of bring the two together, make it feel like it's part of the base, but different enough to stand out and not just look like an extension of the starter home. And that is really what I was going for. And so I'm really happy with how this turned out, and I look forward to doing some AFK fishing in there. One really quick announcement, I have a definitive move date now. I am moving at the beginning of March, which means that I'm going to go ahead and do my world tour episode next week and kind of wrap up this portion of the series. And then there's going to be a couple of weeks where I'm not going to be able to do any recordings. So I am going to be taking a little break after next week, and then hopefully jump back in with some fresh content after that. So thanks y'all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit that like button. And while you're down there, feel free to subscribe so you'll get notified of future episodes as they come out. Thanks y'all, and have a great day.